Final Fantasy XIV offers tons of things to do in-game, and each offers its own unique experience, whether it's different roles or classes or all of the different encounters available. Today, we're talking about healing and the differences between dungeon and end-game encounters. The first and maybe biggest difference between healing end-game content and healing a dungeon is the amount of known information. A dungeon, believe it or not, actually has more unknown factors than a raid or extreme encounter. Going in, you may have some idea of where the tank will pull to or how the DPS will behave, but it's a general idea at best. The tank's level of experience will determine if they do what's common. They may pull less or more, they may mitigate, or, much to your horror, they may not. Further, you have to factor in how the DPS behave. Having 2 strong DPS with you will help immensely, as the mobs will be dealt with quickly. If they aren't well versed, however, you'll be dealing with long and painful pulls with your mana entering the single digits and questioning how quickly it will take you to run back to this spot after a reset. Raiding, on the other hand, while very intimidating on the surface, can actually be much more structured. The fight will be scripted and, theoretically, especially with a static, could play out the same every single time. Tank busters and raid-wide attacks will always happen at the same point, and mechanics are meant to be executed in the same precise way with each attempt. How people operate in their respective roles is still an important factor, but you're likely to find more consistency in raiding and in-game trials, especially with a static. A quick note about statics versus party finder groups. A static has the potential to be a much calmer experience, as there will likely be more communication and everyone can be on the same page about each other's experience and expectations. You will also probably have a raid leader calling out mechanics as they happen. This guiding hand can help deal with the very fast-paced nature of these fights. Party Finder is a much broader scope, however, and contains a large range of players in terms of experience, gear, knowledge, and attitudes. If you are new to the fight and jumping into Party Finder for a clear, I strongly recommend looking for a practice group first. Joining a farm or loot party without good knowledge of the fight and a couple clears under your belt will probably just lead to frustration. Don't let this discourage you though. One of the best ways to practice and become better in your role is in Party Finder, but more on that in another video. I've talked in a previous video about how all healing is premeditated, and it is. Knowledge of the fight is always the strongest thing in your toolkit, and while in dungeons you can learn the layout and common practices, there will always be some measure of reaction in roulettes. It's honestly one of the things that can keep dungeon runs so fresh. You almost always have to be on your toes. As powerful as tank busters and other attacks can be in raiding, a large mob of adds can burn down a tank just as quickly. As I mentioned above, raiding can oftentimes be a much more structured experience. Despite the fact that you'll be dealing with more mechanics and movement at any given moment, this actually allows you to plan things out a little easier. You can literally create an Excel document, which is awesome, by the way. I love Excel, so if I have an excuse to go over a spreadsheet breaking down the entire raid and planning out healing and mitigation, I am so here for it. This approach of planning and timing brings us straight into our next point. As you become more familiar with the structure of end-game content, you'll begin to see how much you can plan things out. For instance, in E9S, I know that placing down my Earthly Star 2 seconds before the fight starts means that it will pop and heal the entire party right after the first raid-wide happens. And then I can use Celestial Opposition for the second raid-wide. And this is consistent. Every pull, with every group, every time, this is what I do. Knowing that allows me to know just how much time I can spend damaging the boss. This is critically important. Don't underestimate how valuable your DPS output as a healer is to the fight. Remember, a dead boss can't hurt the party. Understanding your timings will reinforce the structure of the fight, and this will do wonders. Anxiety for healing, or any role, is rooted in things being unknown. If we know the timing of the fight, if we know where we need to be and when we need to be there, then we are removing variables and getting more things under our control. This can go a step further as well with the understanding of your co-healer's abilities. Learning when a white mage will use a size, for instance, can save you from using a heal unnecessarily and having it for later in the fight. As a white mage, you may not need to use a Medica 2 here because the Astro has an Earthly Star that is about to pop and will top off the entire party. This isn't something to really stress about when you're getting started. Getting comfortable, learning the mechanics of the fight, and chiefly not dying is much, much more important. This is more of an optimization that will come with time and talking with other healers, which I strongly recommend you do. Finding out how other people approach encounters and how they deal with certain mechanics. This can broaden your horizons and help you see things in a way you may not have before. This isn't meant to make dungeon healing seem harder than it is, or endgame healing to seem easier. Both are challenging in their own respects and require research, practice, and patience. What it is meant to do is break down potential barriers of entry into any of these activities. Both can seem very overwhelming at the start, but there are tools available to help make these more approachable. I hope this helps. I will see you out there.